Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today I'm coming to you all with yet another Out of the Theater, in the Theater reaction, this time for Send Help. Directed by Sam Raimi and starring Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien. Story-wise, this is centered around a disgruntled employee and her obnoxiously misogynistic boss, who end up in a battle of wits and survival when they become stranded on a deserted island after an unexpected plane crash. So I'm gonna start with the pros. First, let me say that Sam Raimi is a director that I think, at least for me, has been formative, but also slightly divisive. I appreciate what he's done as far as the Spider-Man trilogy. I enjoy what he's done with the Evil Dead films. The first two, at least. I'm really not into Army of Darkness. I fell asleep when I tried to watch it. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion. But yes, I think that Sam Raimi's films always just have a little something that hits different. Whether it's to your taste or not, I think his blending of horror and comedy has just been something that he really has made his own and has really worked for him throughout a variety of his films. Now, what's really wild is the fact that this is his first R-rated film in 26 years, which I honestly did not realize. But as someone who has had that experience with some of those early films, I honestly can't believe it, but I think this is a return to form. I thought it was like delightfully intense and gross and nasty when it needed to be. Definitely some images here that I didn't think I'd be seeing, but you know, it actually was an enjoyable ride. I didn't regret some of the images I saw here. It was a wild roller coaster of a film. And I think, although I also can be very up and down when it comes to horror comedy, something about this works. And I will also say that it's not really horror. It's really a suspense thriller. I think horror is a reach. I think because of Sam Raimi, it's obviously going to get that stamp. But it's really more so, you know, kind of like a psychological survival thriller. And I will also say that I was outdone when I realized that the reality TV competition series Survivor was actually a core part of this film. Like the way I about flipped out when I realized that. And I also think that when it comes to a lot of stories centered around survival, or even films specifically centered around survival, it's always just kind of been like, gosh, like it's compelling in a lot of ways. And you know, there are a lot of true life stories that speak to that, but it's such a demoralizing, depressing situation to be stuck in, which is why a lot of films that center around that, I'm always just like, oh, it's just, I don't know. But I will say that this film does a great job of incorporating that survivor piece in a very direct way, but it also made the story compelling at the same time. When you see the dynamics of what's going on, Rachel McAdams' character and Dylan O'Brien's character, and just the escalating tension and frustrations and all these things that boil over and simmer over, it's wild. It is wild. It is so wild. And I love the fact that I couldn't necessarily guess what was going to happen next. I think I had a small little inkling of where the story might go, but then a couple of things and a few more things happened. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't know how this is going to end, and I didn't. I think whatever my estimation of how this was going to play out was probably not fully accurate, although I was able to guess a couple of things. But yes, I think that Rachel McAdams has been like killing it in films since like the early 2000s. I still remember like The Family Stone, Red Eye, The Notebook, of course, Mean Girls. Like, she's had an insane run of films, and she's always been a quality actress. She's someone who has always like given her all in every performance, and this is no different. It's something a little outside of maybe what I'm used to, because of course I've seen her in a lot of romance dramas and, occasional, films that might have a little bit of quirkiness. But this, I think for me personally, was a new type of performance. There was some physicality here. There was obviously some comedic elements, and I just think she did a great job taking all that on. I really enjoyed her in this. And then Dylan O'Brien, I've already talked about this ad nauseum, but Dylan O'Brien is an actor I've only continued to enjoy. This is another example of why I enjoy him, because he was doing the absolute most in this film in so many ways, and he did a great job portraying a very unlikable character. And I think I've gotten used to him playing somewhat likable characters, and Lord, that's not what this was. But I appreciate the range. I appreciate the dimension, right? And I just think the two of them together was an insane pairing. I don't know if I would have thought Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams on the page or in a film together, but it works. And they do such a great job together, and it really builds up to something I wasn't really prepared for. Jumping over to the cons, not a lot of cons. I will simply say that when we get into the final act, there are some elements of the story that seem a little muddled. It's something about the mindset of the main character that I feel like feels slightly unresolved. And considering the journey of our protagonist, so to speak, it's just kind of interesting where that lands towards the end. And I was just kind of like on the fence about that. Like, I think it works, but I think there's something a little too placid about the way it ends, or something maybe a little too settled about the way it ends to an extent. I think it's fine, but I will say, like, considering how much plays out throughout the film, I think something about the ending is just maybe a little too, okay, sure. Okay, yeah, it's fine. Like, it's not a bad ending at all. It's just like, considering what leads right up to that moment, it was kind of like, okay, sure. So, kind of threw me off a little bit, but I think overall, it's a very entertaining film. It's a very visually memorable film. And I don't know if Sam Raimi is going to continue with the R-rated, films, but I think this is a great example of how he could absolutely continue to do that. Because, no disrespect to Oz the Great and Powerful and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but both of those were kind of a chop for me. So if he is willing to continue with films like this, I would absolutely be here for it. Sam Raimi has always been a little bit up and down for me as far as his direction and the style of films that he makes, but I feel like he is definitely a director that remains in the cultural, film zeitgeist for a reason. And I hope that this will just continue to propel him to make even more films and continue to cement the legacy he's already established. So with that being said, I enjoyed this very much. I give this maybe like I would probably put this at maybe like a B minus. Very enjoyable experience. Glad I got the chance to get out because, these winter storms have been taking over, and I was just like, my mom was like, hey, you want to go to the theater? I was like, absolutely. And considering how I felt about my last, Mercy, this is like a completely different experience. It gave me a lot more that I wasn't expecting to get. And I walked away really feeling like this is one I can't wait to talk about and probably see with my friends as well. So with that being said, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you with the movies.